at our next full board meeting, recommend.
There's likely to be other accounts within the fire department that will be under budget by significantly more.
So you mean, they'll be under budget, so you let it go? Well, why don't we, if we authorize the over expenditure, we've dealt with that one account.
Correct.
$311, which is a significant amount. And at the end of the year, you just, with the other accounts that are going to be underspent, you just wipe it out. But in the meantime, we'll authorize the over expenditure. Joanne, I would recommend that we want our recommendation to the full board to authorize the over expenditure of that account.
Okay, thank you.
So make sure that that gets on the full board agenda as part of our recommendation.
You want a motion on that, or?
Yeah, okay. Motion.
Motion is made, I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is made and seconded and passes.
Okay. Okay, go fast forward now to the account road repairs, which is account number 0013300 -712.65-04. It shows that shows an adopted budget of 65,000. And the Board of Aldermen just gave them 600,000. So I think we gave them the 600,000. I think it came out of the American Relief Funds. So that you probably won't, you'll keep that as a special account versus adding it to the budget. Am I correct?
We will, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to make
Oh,
that
that's
point.
not, what is it? No,
Page 19.
19.
I just wanted to make that point so that, as it shows here that we just budgeted 65,000, but it's really, it's 600.
565,000.
500.
Well, there's another 500,000 which you allocated.
Yeah, I don't Board of Alderman bonding.
I don't have the notes. I thought it was out of COVID money.
It was, the last one was COVID money. I didn't,
The
I thought it was,
600.
yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah,
600.
I think that's what John said.
600,000.
Yeah.
So that should reflect to be 565,000.
No, no, if we gave them 500,000, you can verify this. But if we gave them 500,000 prior to this, out of Board of Alderman bonding, and I'm not sure. This is from memory, you know. But the 600,000 we gave from American Relief Funds.
Okay.
And that would, my point is that would not, while we're spending, authorizing the expenditure so far of 665,000, plus anything else we gave them that they still haven't used, it's not going to reflect in this account because it's a special account, and you manage that account.
And those accounts are handled separately,
Yeah.
either in capital projects
Right.
or.
Right,
You're gonna set up separate
Special
accounts.
budget.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, go to the Board of Education and go to account number 001, the last one at the bottom, 4100-811.80-35 payroll. And I just want to make the point that is the account that we have agreed, it's not part of the budget, it's not figured into the number of the budget. And it is an agreement between the Board of Education and the Board of Aldermen for accounting purposes to maintain that in our budget.
As recommended by our independent auditor.
Right. Okay, just so that that's understood, it's not part of this budget, it's not in the total of 129 million.
Should we have a motion to
No.
clear that? No?
I just wanted to point it out, it's in there for purposes of assisting the Board of Education in monitoring it for reconciliation purposes. Okay. So, can't get enough spit on my fingers. Okay, go to risk management, public risk management. And is the CRRA.
Count number, John?
There's no account number, you're mistaken. Is the CRA included here? If so, what account? 412.30-20 municipal insurance. 30-20.
This is in the 5,600 account?
Yeah, it's 5,600, 412 municipal insurance. A question on that.
Page 26.
Right.
Oh, is CRA included here? So what account? Is it in this account? When I review these things and make these notes, I put abbreviations and then I pick it up again 2 weeks later and I say, what was that abbreviation?
The primary expense in that account is to Kerma,
Kerma.
which is the Connecticut Interlocal Risk
Yeah.
Management. So
We're getting some money back from Kerma, right? We'll be getting some revenue.
we get, it's essentially a mutual insurance company sponsored or under the CCM, Connecticut Conference of Municipality umbrella. And they insure the vast majority of municipalities in the state of Connecticut. And depending on what we do and what the other 168 towns do, and the success, we've historically gotten back dividends in the $20,000 to $40,000 range annually to offset that. But the problem is you can't predict that.
Yeah, and the dividend is not based on our performance. The dividend is based on the entire state's
The
performance.
entire state. So
Yeah, and that,
some communities, may have had,
if we went out to a private firm, and our performance would, yield results, direct results in relation to what the good work that we did, but it doesn't work that way with them.
we're, as I say, it's essentially a mutual insurance company.
Yeah. And it's done that way so that there's the big towns we help the big towns.
We're all in this together.
Yep. Yep. And that was my last comment on the expenditure side. On the revenue side, statutory refunds. Can you explain that? It looks like
Page 1.
it's statutory refunds.
We're running a little ahead of schedule here. Statutory refunds are basically where overpayments have been made. Many of these come as a result of,
Car sale?
car sales and lease payments. Many people lease automobiles or vehicles, trucks, stuff like that. And when they terminate the lease, they've already paid, because we're collecting essentially 100% of the money up front. And you have, for example, you were already on the hook as of this past Friday, as of October 1st, for 1/12 of the payment that you will make next July for your motor vehicle taxes. And if at some point between October 1st of 2021 and September 30th of 2022, you terminate that lease, we owe you some money back. And that's really where the majority of this comes. The one thing to watch out for in this account is also, this is the account where, and since we're in a revaluation year, and the revaluation numbers will be coming out probably around the 1st of December, we may need to set up greater reserves in this account, because depending upon what the Board of Assessment Appeals does, and depending upon what court actions are done on appeals, you can get stuck here, you know, because if particularly on a commercial property where there may be, you know, 6-figure payment coming, and if it gets reduced by either by agreement, negotiated agreement, by the Board of Assessment Appeals, or by the court, this is the account that money's gonna come from. So I think we've got to really take a hard look at that in next spring.
But
Setting up budget.
right now, it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, right, well, you see, we're 5 years out of reval, you know, the reval date was basically Friday, as to what was the value of real estate. The good news is that we're all aware the real estate market has been going up, and so I think values are gonna be up fairly significantly, which means the bill rate is potentially going to be reduced. No promises, but
Suspense collections were about $2,226.
that's just bonus money. Suspense collections are tax money. Annually, the tax collector submits to the Board of Aldermen a lengthy list of accounts that she feels are not, you know,
Collectible.
not to spend a lot of time on. And you probably need to spend anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 of delinquent payments, either the company has gone bankrupt, people have moved out of town,
Not collectible.
or you know, or they've died.
On page 3, account 341, we've got .18-01 state fees. Looks like we're running to the good.
Well, that's basically found money. And really where it comes from is when oftentimes people move back into Connecticut. And it's not just Shelton, but they could come from any one of the other 168 towns, and they want to register a motor vehicle, and they say, oh, you didn't pay your taxes in Shelton in 2010. And in order to register a vehicle, you've got to pay us back. So if they want to register a vehicle in New London or Stamford or Pomfret, or wherever, they got to pay us.
Sooner or later, they get you.
Yeah, it's found money. It's not a big revenue account, but it's,
And return check fees is, that's going to account 361-.12-00, return check fees on the next page. It's $494. So that's just an indication of what we did last year and went through last year and discussed in detail last year. It's unpredictable.
Now it's showing 36, I think, for this time.
No, I think he's on 361.12. 934.
6112.
Yeah.
The recreation programs, 381-14-00, that's up $3,790 on my calculation.
Yeah, same amount.
So that's better than we anticipated similarly in the year.
Those are the fees from the community center, and actually they're coming back from
Yes,
COVID.
yeah.
Okay, the last page, account 381.2200, 100 Meadow Street lease. We anticipate anything there, so we probably got that lease from the property lease, and we're bringing in revenues from it.
Yeah, that's Echo Hose.
Okay,
So we charge them for their utilities. They pay us back for the utilities.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the number on that.
381.22.
Oh, I got it, okay.
Yeah, that's it, okay. And then the employee restitution, that's,
Sharon.
It's someone named Sharon Scanlon.
okay, that's it for the revenues. That's the reconciliation of the budget.
Agenda item number 2 is the finance
Could I
director.
make one comment on one
Sure.
account? On the sheets that you were handed out tonight, granted, it was this of October 1st. Mr. Angles's report was of about 3 weeks ago. There's one account which we do have a deficit in. You look on the second page,
Revenues or expenditures?
revenues. I'm sorry, not revenues, expenditures, my mistake. Expenditures. Insurance waivers. This was budgeted for $70,000. And as you can see, we've spent $73,958. These are payments, and that is likely to be a final number. Because those payments are made in the second payroll of August. What has happened, we've had, and I have the list here of the people who have received payments. Since the budget was adopted,
That's a medical insurance waivers.
and medical insurance payments where people are, individuals, dual memberships or families
Right,
are not in, so we don't have any exposure on these people
right.
for any health insurance costs. There are contractual agreements that they get paid a certain amount. And on the city side and on the police side, we've added a few new officers who came out of the state police program. They retired from the state police. They're covered under the state police. On the city side, and looking here, we've added 5 additional participants who are eligible for this program. If you go back over the last half a dozen years, we historically have had a surplus in the $15,000 to $20,000 range in this account. And so that number is gone, shall we say. And there is a deficit of close to $4,000, which will not go away. So that's another account, I think, that you either want to, we either want to figure out where to spend it or have overspend it because the money has been spent. And, you know, obviously in next year's budget, depending on
Right.
what,
So we'll do the same thing, we'll authorize the over expenditure. Make a motion, move to authorize the over expenditure of the insurance waivers account for 001-0200-411.20-17 in the amount of $3,958.
Second.
Motion is made by Inglis and seconded by Simonetti. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Move to recommend to the full board, okay?
Move it.
All right. We had some comments from the director.
I think, in general, we are in very solid financial position. As you can see by the figures that you got this evening, the tax collections have been running, if anything, a little ahead of schedule. As I indicated at the last meeting, I anticipate that we're going to get a small windfall as far as the motor vehicle supplemental taxes are concerned because of the values of the new and used cars have gone up significantly. And there's just been an awful lot of activity there. we pointed out a couple of areas last month that had deficits, which are, shall I say, manageable. One being the ECS account, in which the Board of Education has opted this year to take the 2%, which they have their option. So our October 31st payment is going to be reduced by roughly $130,000. And as I say, we had the other deficit in the lack of an agreement with the city of Derby on the tax collector's position. The other positions are proceeding as planned. But overall, I think we are in a very healthy and solid financial position in these uncertain times.
We asked some questions. Pass this over to Joanna,
Thank you.
because Joanna, I don't think you were on the board at the time when this came out. This was in January of 2020. That's because, is that for you, Anthony, because you probably didn't bring yours with you. But back in January of 2020, the letter you have that's on the surface here it's from the office, the Department of Education, State of Connecticut, Office of Internal Audit. And this has to do with the special education excess cost situation that we went through. And this is still not resolved, and there's still open issues on it. We have the recommendations you see on page 2. I have them underlined. And one of the things that the State Office of Internal Audit recommended, I got here, I made up another thing, but I'm not giving it to you, because this is my notes. But what they did was they recommended that the city and the Board of Education establish and follow procedures for the treatment of special education costs and the receipt of CSDE, Special Education Excess Cost Grant Funds, in order to ensure compliance with Connecticut General Statutes, Section 10-76 GB. That is a task that they ask be performed by the Board of Education and the city concurrently, together, cooperatively. And everybody's agreed to do it. But that was in January of 2020, and it still hasn't been completed. And so I have to keep bringing that up, because we do want to reduce that to writing, because that's what they recommended. The procedure of how you're going to do it be reduced to writing so it can be followed. So I just bring that up to remind you to get with the Board of Education. And that's an internal thing between the finance department and city and finance.
If I could comment on that, as you were aware, there is still pending a legal action lawsuit.
Yeah.
Instituted with the city being the plaintiff.
Yeah.
And the Board of Education being the defendant in this particular case. There have been preliminary hearings on the case, probably most recently about 2 months ago with the court. There was a very brief hearing with Judge Tyma. And the only thing basically that came out of that, apparently, I was not present at that, though I have been in contact with the attorney who represents the city on this matter. You and I met with him at his office in Fairfield some time ago. Is that the intent is that it will go to court, the case will be heard, but not until some point in 2022.
There's a huge delay because of COVID. Court shut down.
As I'm sure
And
Chair Lady would
of course,
Yes.
attest to, the courts are backed up a little bit.
I think what you're telling us is that, because of the court case, that the parties have not been able to get together and work this out. Once this case is resolved, then I don't think there should be difficulties in developing a written procedure.
I think what's happened, particularly in the last two fiscal years, in fiscal 20 and fiscal 21, and currently in fiscal 22, we're following patterns, which I think the Board of Education is satisfied with. That is,
well, the issues that we encountered have since been reconciled and we're on the right path. The findings of the Office of Internal Audit cited the city. Let me quote them. We recommend that the city, here's a quote from Nora Chapman, the supervising accounts examiner in the Office of Internal Audit, State Board of Education. OIA notes that the city pays all of the costs associated with special education services, which would reduce the Board of Ed's expenditures for special education costs. Since the Board of Ed does not have any accounts payable balance at year's end, we believe that the city has been reducing the Board of Ed's special education expenditures for the grant funds received. So I believe, as I interpret that in the English language, that if we're paying the special education costs on an ongoing basis, then there's no need to transfer those funds when they come in. It's the city that gets reimbursed and not the Board of Ed. But there's still those who make a political case of this, who wish to deny, etc., but they're not going to be able to hide once they get into court. This is factual. This is from the State Board of Education Office of Internal Audit. It's cut and dry, it's plain and simple. And you know, they got to stop making, now, just to go one step further. This was in January, this audit was done in January, findings of 2020. On June 11th, 2020, I reported to the Board of Aldermen. And I gave them a report on this, comprehensive report. And I covered the special ed excess cost sharing problem. I covered the relationship between the Board of Ed and the Board of Aldermen, and why some people were saying it's a rocky relationship, fiscal relationship you have, and it's terrible, and you want to do something about it. Well, we did do something about it. And we put everything, all the cards on the table, put everything out there. We talked about, in June, we talked about the special ed cost program. There's still, some people politically are still in denial on the Board of Education side. And that's too bad, because the findings from the Office of Internal Audit say that make it clear what went on, and it did. And we addressed the bus program. We talked about that. We talked about technology. We talked about the state of emergency in America and Connecticut, and a state of emergency every place except between the Board of Education. You know what I mean? So this was in 2020. Now, we also said in as part of that, and I'm just recounting just for the record. We said we welcome the new Board of Education, and we find a willingness to work with the Board of Aldermen to be refreshing and hopeful. And the business as usual attitude of the past must be examined if we are to see educational progress. Well, I want to tell you that there has been a tremendous change in this new Board of Education, and I can't welcome their openness, and especially from the superintendent and Rick Belden, who did a tremendous job. You'll recall, people were questioning us about, well, the city's fiscal, your rainy day fund went down, and you had $12 million, and that $12 million went down to nothing. And why? Well, you recall, those of us who were on the firing line and knew what was going on, we consciously decided at that time, and this was several years back, we consciously decided that you can't hold on to a municipality, cannot just sit on $12 million, because the state of Connecticut's got its ugly eyes focused on you. And if they see you got $12 million, they're going to find a way to take it away from them. So we said, let's get some of the infrastructure paid for, the roads and stuff like this, and spend it down. We were targeting to spend it down to 4 or 5 million. And then we have 4.4 million due to city in the capital project work that we did for the Board of Education. And it was over 10 years in the making, and until Rick Belden showed up and went to work on it, and thank God, but Rick Belden saw it through and got it done before he left. And we certainly owe him a huge vote of thanks. But the new superintendent was totally cooperative. I mean, you know, and he just put, I mean, I even went through and made a list of the positives, the positive things that have happened. And I said as part of my summary, where do we go from here? And this was in 2020. This is now 2021. And our first step was to create a leadership working, talking relationship, which we did. And right now, the relationship is tremendously improved between the mayor and superintendent of schools. They're working cooperatively. An example, they had 1.2 million left over in their budget. They had 1.2 million excess monies in last year's budget, and they sat together and worked out how they're going to spend it. You probably know much better than I do, but they paid off that charter school loan, which all other municipalities, when they got their bill from the city of Bridgeport, they sat down and they wrote them a check. And our superintendent and our schools and our mayor worked together, and they said, look, let's examine this thing. You know, we have no standing unless we take them to court. They took them to court. And they negotiated it out, and they saved $50,000 for the taxpayers. Was it 50 or 75?
50.
So, but I mean, those are the type of things that are a result of cooperation. And so, I mean, I'll tell you, I'm, as I sit here, I'm pleased with the results that have been achieved since I gave that report back in 2020. And I'm glad that I put it on record. It's here. If you want it, I'll give you a copy of it. But, you know, nobody liked to hear it at the time. But the fact of the matter is, you got to put the cards on the table if you're going to address the issue. And you know, you might hurt some feelings, but people got to realize that, you know, and in our business, running a city of $130 million city, it's a $130 million corporation. And you got 40,000 people out there who know how to do it better or alternate ways. And then you got a small group of political people that are distorting the facts as they go along just for political reasons. So you got to keep all the issues on the table, and you got to stay focused on them. But I'll tell you, I think we can look back now and we can say that we made very measurable progress. And the relationship that used to exist no longer exists. And I'll let it go at that. I think we're going in the right direction. Let's keep it moving.
Well said, John. If I may add to that, it's other people's money that we're dealing with. We have to be good stewards of it, and I think we have been good stewards of it all these years.
Anybody else need to say anything?
Joanna, I don't think you were here at the time. So this is the only copy I got.
Oh, sure.
I'll make a copy again.
Okay, I was not here then.
Terry, do you need anything from me that
You can get a copy of the letter afterwards. I'll make a copy of that.
Want to pass it down her, she can make two copies.
I don't have an extra. We're going to make a copy
With
here.
the phone.
Oh,
For herself, I guess.
so pass her yours. Then. Pass her yours.
Pass her this one?
Yeah.
The letter, okay.
That was what you want, right? The
You can,
letter from the OIA, Office of
Yeah.
Internal Audit,
You can pass it.
and the other, give her the other one too.
This one too? No, I gave her the other piece already.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's two.
We're gonna go to reconciliation next. Is that what the next thing is? Or is that the last?
That
item?
was the last item on the agenda.
Can
Yeah,
I-
do you want to make any comments about the reconciliation of the form?
The federal,
These references, you know. these-
maybe, I'm sorry, reconciliation.
Yeah, it was the report.
Piscatelli, I think, can address the,
Listing of our accounts, everything is reconciled to the end of June. So the auditors are currently working on last year's reconciliations. We've had a bit of turnover in our department, so we have Kathy retired after 17 years. So we have a new hire who's taken over that is working on some of them. You can see the name changes from the last report. Board of Education updated all of their accounts through the end of June, as well as the senior center and the library.
Plus you had a couple of babies born.
You had a leave of absence. We've lost somebody out on maternity
Oh,
leave.
God.
But a bit of an upheaval
And then
upstairs.
Jean is out sick with a medical problem and 3 months. Intensive care, oh my God.
let me just touch on that briefly for your information. Gene Sullivan is a medical leave, has been since early June. He is fortunately now he's been admitted and readmitted to the hospital on 4 different occasions. He has now taken up residence in nursing home in Shelton and has improved, which is the good news. We have retained on a temporary basis, gal who worked with me in Fairfield. She retired in Fairfield about 4 years ago, had been the purchasing director in Fairfield for 17 years. And prior to that was the purchasing director for Aquarium Water for 11 years. So she's, I need my mask.
Thank you, okay.
And so she's here on a temporary basis until we see how Gene's recovery goes.
Poor Jean, he's been 3 months. Most of that time intensive.
You hear from him, tell us, wish as well.
So he's up at Gardner Heights.
Yeah.
Gardner Heights Nursing Home.
Do you have visitors?
Apparently so. The only thing I would say is if you go to visit, a person in his weakened physical state, make it short.
Always. Don't give them anything either unless you check it with the nurse first.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
very much for the numbers. Appreciate it.
Good, but
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.